Hello and welcome, Peering Soul, to the third entry of my digital sketchbook series. In this video, I will be discussing a little more about Stains of Sin, which I introduced the last entry as a brutal post-apocalyptic world where flesh and technology are intertwined. What exactly will be detailed are some mock blood related concepts, such as alternative means of obtaining it, storing it, the saint who created it, as well as a peek into beings who wish to take or taint the synthetic ichor. However, this entry's main topic is that of the titular stains of sin, what they are, how they form, and the ways it affects neo-humans once they become stained. Expect this entry to be a rather lore-heavy one, especially with the sins. Alright, now that that's set up, let us venture back to the wastes of the Red Ruin. Starting with an alternative means of refilling one's blood core, here is a concept for a backpack, I guess you could call it, fitted with a tank of mock blood which can steadily pump out the ichor via the tubes over a long period of time. This allows the neo-human to continue roaming without having to periodically stop and refill their blood core. However, it's quite heavy and requires a lot of mock blood to fill the tank back up, which, if they don't have a plentiful source for mock blood, will become a problem. These portable tanks are, as well, found only in certain locations which the Saint of Blood's influence has reached. Another alternative mock blood source, this being a circular glass container called a blood cell, which is an easily portable storer made specifically for the refilling of sob needles. The little hole on the bottom, perfect for the syringe's thin needle. They're quite common throughout the Red Ruin, especially in city environments. The exact blood cell drawn is empty, and on its face a peculiar snowflake-like symbol can be seen. It is not that of the Saint of Bloods, and so what could it mean? Here is yet another source of mock blood, this being a smallish machine called a sob bacillus, which crawls about the ruined interiors of mills and the like for an unknown purpose. Sob is an acronym for Saint of Blood, tying it, as well as the needle detailed previously, to the titular saint. These machines have a sizable hollow within them, containing a good amount of mock blood, which suggests that they were created as autonomous transports of blood upon their creation, but their destination, seemingly, has been lost. The hole on their front is perfect for the insertion of sob needles, allowing the stored blood to be drawn out. Harmless and rather slow, a crafty neo-human can pick up the machine, rip its legs off, and use it as a portable mock blood tank for some time. Once it's drained, they can disassemble it for useful parts. We arrive at last to the Saint of Blood himself, this being my first concept of them, which I will change later, as some parts of its design doesn't match well with my current vision for Stains of Sin's saints. But one detail I want to carry over is the needle face, as well as the pronounced knob where, on the average neo-human, mock blood is injected into, with the saints having elaborate patterns and lots of tubing pouring out of it, connecting to some blood source. Since the ancestral heart was exposed to the reddened air, and natural blood was incapable of mixing with the technology needed to, quote, thrive in the Red Ruin, a blood substitute needed to be created, similar with the breaths being a substitute for oxygen. over the intermediary period post-folly, called the Great Misery. Once mankind was transitioning into new humanity, the Saint of Blood invented the solution. Mock blood, the blood core, sob needles, and various other pieces of technology which aimed to imitate the life-giving ichor of ancestral man are credited to them. The intricacies of mock blood and other Saint of Blood stuff will be talked about in their own dedicated videos. But for now, I will leave it as is. An interesting thought which popped into my head once designing the Saint was, since their image and technology are so important to new humanity, why would there not be some entities which took advantage of that and imitated the Saint for their own desires? And so, the concept of blood saints came to be. False, saintly neo-humans, machines, or, more juicily, stained, which offer boons of mock blood to new humans, but truthfully hunger to take it from the unfortunate victim. These false saints are often called by traveled neo-humans as ichor knaves, found in dark, desolate facilities underground by the desperate. And that is this sketch shown. A battered neo-human in need of blood, tempted by the ichor knave. The needle, which is like an insect's beak, is far too big for the knob to handle. But logic has been lost to them. They thrust the needle into the knob, destroying it and puncturing their blood core. And, true to the saint's promise, grants them a boon of mock blood. But this is not mock blood. Instead, a foul liquid which floods their body, spilling out of every orifice like a macabre fountain. And as they lie, hunched and pouring a fake ichor, a stain forms within their skull. Rising and continuously spewing the dark liquid, they have lost their traces of humanity in return for endless blood, becoming a lesser stained. Such is the fate of those who have forgotten the image of the true Saint of Blood. In a similar vein to the ichor knaves, I sketched here a small machine which searches for new humans to stab its long, wiry proboscis into their bodies, snaking around and piercing their blood cores to steadily drain them of the precious liquid. Once feeding, these machinates lock onto the new human's flesh with strong, mechanical legs, their sac swelling with blood until they can suck up no more. Once full, they scurry off. Where exactly? I imagine to Ichernave, or something similar, to deposit their stolen cash. Parasitic machines are something I don't see often, but is one I want to explore more in Stains of Sin, as I feel it fits this world's vision of robots quite well. But that concludes the Mockblood section of this tour. Now, let us flip to the other page, where the nature and forms of sins come to light. The stains of sin are the manifestations of man's evil, born from the mind and are as varied as humanity itself. Man are creatures of creation and desire, and these aspects, if teetered in the opposite direction, corrupt into hubris and depravity. Such sins stain life, with none greater than the red which coats the earth. These stains came to be after the event which turned the world into the red ruin, called the Folly, spread onto the descendants of mankind like a genetic disease which forms in the brain after repeated partaking or exposure to the appropriate sin. When a sin completely envelops a brain, that means the neo-human has given in to ancestral evils, letting themselves be lost in dark desires, which twist and bloat them into mad abominations, called the Stained. The brain pictured is one that is clean of stains, fresh, fully functioning, and the, quote, natural state for new humanity. It is absent of more advanced augments which would give it more character, specifically on the non-biological parts, but it keeps the new human going and is a remnant of man's origins as children of nature. In this and many other ways, the brain is like a blank canvas. The new human has the choice of splotching it with the drabness of simple survival, staining it with the depravities which rest deep within, or painting it with the rare yet sought beauties of virtue and creation. And now, let us shift to the 8 sins new humans can become stained by, beginning with the sin of carnage. This stain forms from excessive acts of violence by the new human's hand, specifically against biological beings. Destroying machines does not cause carnage to form. As one can expect, this sin is rather easy to become stained by, as killing is necessary for new human survival. But thankfully, the process is rather slow for a sin. However, if the neo-human learns to revel in bloodshed and augments themselves to be proficient and excessive in it, then they will become stained much quicker. To keep the brain clean, simply avoiding murder for prolonged periods of time will rid one of it. And perhaps later on, I will add in an alternative medicine-like item, which can stave off a stain. But I haven't put much thought into that. Moving on to the sin of hunger, which forms when either a new human consumes an excessive amount of mock blood or breath to the point where it harms their blood core or lung, or when a new human adopts hoarding behaviors, such as firearms, ammo, technology, scraps, and the like, can cause hunger to appear. Unable to be sated, they continue to consume and collect their desired resource, bloating their bodies but starving their minds, causing their brains to steadily consume themselves as the sin takes hold. Brigands suffer from hunger the most, the vast majority eventually becoming stained, if they are not killed by rival brigands or independent wandering new humans first. Interestingly, hunger can extend to conceptual items as well, such as knowledge. Neo-humans are devoid of the natural reproductive processes of the past, as manufacturing is faster and allows for the ease of mechanical implants. But what if a neo-human wishes to recreate that lost biological tenderness? That is where the sin of love comes from. It is not the pure love we are familiar with, rather a malformed, ignorant love. A love whose tenderness is confused with the literal desire of becoming one with the lover. The stain forms from that desire to foster a relationship with one or more biological beings, often resulting in the new human becoming a parasitic stain, or grotesquely, an unsightly imitation of a mother or father. It is one of the rarer sins, as its doors only open to those who discover the forgotten emotion. Pain and hardship are a part of life, and defines a new human's existence. They are accustomed to it, knowing it since creation, and learning how to carry its burdens in their own little ways. But what if a new human experiences such immense misery, such unimaginable physical torment that the mind can think nothing but of it, that they drown in utter despair. That is how this sin, the sin of despair, forms. The loss of hope or means of carrying life's hardships leads to one's brain staining black. The despair forming cavities all across that only grow bigger and deeper the farther they fall. The most common way neo-humans become stained by despair is either from unceasing exposure to black rain, the loss of companions in progress, or by failing to escape certain dark corners of the waste. While physical wounds are commonplace, mental ones are rather hard to come by. I'm relating to phobias, trauma, and the like, which neo-humans are surprisingly resistant to. They have to be in order to get far in the Red Ruin. They can absolutely be shocked or frightened when faced against a life-threatening situation, but it only lasts in the moment, never lingering with them once they make it through, as that sort of event will never be the last. But what if, in that rare chance, they do witness something so horrible that the encounter scars a part of them normally unknown, but intimately a part of ancestral man's beliefs forever? That being the spirit, intangible yet present despite the generations of mechanical shaping. In that moment, the sin of fear forms, shaving off most of the brain and erecting an odd antenna-like growth from the crater. And as they become stained, spreads their sin to all who come close. Fear-stained are physically weak, but have access to psychic abilities, projecting terror into the minds of the unstained, and seemingly twisting the fabrics of reality itself with their fear. Little gear exists which protects the mind itself, making fear-stained immensely dangerous. Thankfully, they are the rarest of all. What exact sources there are for fear are not 100% fleshed out, but if you, peering soul, watch the previous century, you may remember the old world machine type. Let's just say the two are rather connected. Most neo-humans are content with their cruel, short lives and want nothing more but to live another day. However, to the few who make it, this simple, pitiful existence is a spit in the face of man's past heights. And so, seeking to free themselves of the cycle wrought by past sins, they pursue ascension. But foolishly, this is yet another sin, the sin of perfection, a road which only leads to their descent into madness. But to the crooked-minded, the inverted mountain is the path to ascension. What exactly it means to ascend is up for the new human, with one of the reasons being to break free of the constraints as mortal, biological, and thus flawed creatures. The stain coats their brain in smooth, shining silver, giving the impression of perfection, though it is a lie which hides the evil underneath. Warlocks are prone to becoming stained by perfection. Ironic, given their efforts in ridding themselves of all biological parts to become superior technological beings. The last two sins described are special cases, in that they are sins capable of staining the environment and non-new human entities, such as machines and ruins creatures. The first of the two is the sin of rust, forming when a mechanical being loses function, thus stagnates, and ultimately decays gradually over time. Machines often rust for obvious reasons. But neo-humans, since they are part mechanical, are also affected by this sin. Neo-humans which rest in one place for too long will begin to rust, and so managing limbs to ensure that if they become damaged or broken, they can be fixed on the spot, as if not, then they risk becoming stuck in one spot and eventually rusting. This is often seen with the lost and beaten, as well as those with mutations which force them to stay put, as shown in the previous entry. It's a gradual decay, and rust-stained are the only ones which are harmless. Like a decrepit machine, all they can do is watch as time passes and their bodies crumble into metal shards, reduced as but another heap of waste in the expanses of the Red Ruin. Finishing with the last of the sins, this is the most special, widespread, and dangerous of the 8. As after all, it is the very sin which reduced the world into the Red Ruin. That being the sin of red, the stain of man. This sin is one which isn't tied to depraved, yet ultimately natural, aspects of biological life. The previous sins are the opposites of desires present in creatures, especially as their minds ascend. Even rust, which can also affect machines, is but an advanced form of stagnation, a staple in nature. But the red is unique, in that it is a stain created by man themselves, born from lofty ambitions, fueled by the highs of playing God. It is truly artificial, and a blight upon life itself. Beginning with the creation of the fleshcraft by the hands of Rosen, the nations sought to paint the perfect world with a red stain. But, in an accidental error, their plan went awry, causing the cataclysmic event known as the Folly, which spread the flawed stain across the world, coating the lives of men and nature in its shadowless red hue. Oxygen turned to red in air, which slowly stains biological life, leading to humanity turning to technology to ensure their survival. The sky, once a canvas of wondrous colors, has eternally turned an oppressive red, and its light does not change as time passes, keeping neo-humanity from knowing whether it's day or night. The only time it changes is when one of the many perilous weather phenomena occur every so often. Unlike the other sins, red does not form in the brain by partaking in desire or losing oneself to madness. Rather, it is from exposure to the many red hazards present all throughout the wastes. Breathing in reddened air, smog, red waste, Rosen-descended technology, radiation, fleshcraft blood, etc. are just some of the ways a neo-human can become stained. That's not it, as red can affect non-neo-humans as well, staining machines and ruins creatures which, too, become exposed to it for too long. Ruined creatures are rather resilient to the sin, but they can become their own stained if conditions are right. The stain of man is a horrid one, an ever-present one, reminding the modern man of the hubris which robbed them of glory, of the folly that eviscerated the cradle of life which they were once a part of. Will neo-humanity be able to amend the sins of the old world? Only time will tell, peering soul. And that wraps it up for this sketchbook entry. This was definitely a lot more of a lore-focused video than a dive into my creative process. But I don't think I need to go super in-depth about what every line means, or what I'm feeling about in the moment every time. Doing that, I have found, drags out the video, which I'm aware is not exactly what everyone wants. Anyway, that about does it for this look into Stains of Sin. And the next entry will be about a new world and its long history. Worry not, Stains of Sin will not be put to the side indefinitely, as it will be one of my 3 choice worlds to build once all of my sketchbook pages have been covered. That will take a while, but we'll get there. Alright, Peering Soul, I will see you next time.